everybody, welcome to my channel. My name is Sharon and this is a channel that is dedicated to all things related to narcissism. I've been married to a covert narcissist for almost 20 years. I'm separated from him now, and what I do with this channel is I use my real life experiences to get information out there to people about what narcissism really is, what it looks like, what it does to you, and what it does to your family. In today's video, I'm going to continue on where I left off last week, talking about my husband being in a mental hospital. This is actually part of a 3-part series. The first video is when I talked about how he actually got into the hospital. Then last week I spoke about him being at the hospital, and then today I'm going to finish that up. I will link the titles below on the description of the video. So this happened in August of 2019. My husband was in a mental hospital. I'm not going to get too far into the background of it because it is in the last week's video and the week before. So he was at this mental hospital and he stayed there for a week. For my kids and I, this was kind of a weird time because on one hand, it was fantastic not to have the possibility of him being home. Prior to this, so this happened in August of 2019, beginning in about April of 2018, he was really starting to lose it. He wasn't the way that he was prior to that at all. When we were first together for the first 15, 16 years of the marriage, he was basically all right. He would go through these cycles where he would be horrible. He had always given me silent treatments. But beginning in 2018, it was a consistent thing. It was all the time. He once gave me a silent treatment for 7 months. He was horrible. This all stemmed from me not giving him narcissistic supply. He had 2 sources of narcissistic supply, me and his parents. His parents would give him money. They stopped doing that, so he lost that narcissistic supply. I also stopped believing him. I stopped believing him when he said he was going to change or he was never going to lie to me again or whatever else he was saying. So he lost all sources of supply and he didn't do well without it. He started drinking, and he had always been drinking, but he was drinking very heavily. I didn't know about this at first, but as time went on, by the time it was 2019, he would have times where he just wouldn't come to the house. He just wouldn't show up. So he would be, at work or whatever, and after work, he would just go on this bender, and he would just be gone. He'd be gone all weekend. We didn't know where he was. He wouldn't call. If you tried to call him, he wouldn't answer the phone. I'd be sending him texts, calling him, begging him to know where he was. I didn't know if he was dead. Should I call somebody? What am I supposed to do? It was horrible. So he just wouldn't show up. So finally, I just got used to it, and I just put up with it, essentially. There was one time, this was actually my son's birthday, and this was June of 2019, and my kids were at a youth group function at church, and my husband knew they were going to go to this youth group function, and so he knew I was supposed to pick them up at midnight, so he knew I wouldn't be home from roughly 11:45 to 12:15. I was terrified to leave the house because I thought he was going to sneak into the house and try to scare me later. So I'm picking up my kids. I'm driving down there. I get the kids. On the way home, my kids are excitedly telling me about what had happened. Remember, it was my son's birthday, so we had brought cupcakes and things, and it should have been a good day. So they were very happy. Then I had to say to them, guys, listen, when we get home, I'm going to search the house because I don't know if Daddy has snuck into the house. I mean, this was the type of thing, it sounds insane to somebody else, but this is what was happening. This is what a narcissistic collapse can look like, coupled with a person, me, being codependent. So my kids are standing in the kitchen like, what the hell? And I'm searching the house. I'm like going down the basement. I'm looking around and everything. I'm looking behind boxes. I'm up in the attic. I thought there was a chance he was in the house hiding somewhere. I was terrified. I was terrified to fall asleep, thinking that he could be somewhere in the house. Now, he wasn't there. He didn't show up until the next day. But that was something that happened. This was the type of life we were living. When you are with a narcissist, you are with somebody who is mentally ill. This type of thing becomes normal. It's crazy. When I think back to this now, I can't even relate to that person anymore. Thank God. But that was how I was living. That was how I let my kids live. So fast forward to August, he's in the hospital. So it was just 2 months later. Now, this whole time he'd been horrible. But at the hospital, the spell broke. He was finally getting narcissistic supply, and he was loving it. So he's at the hospital. It was very stressful having my husband being in a mental hospital. It was embarrassing too. We didn't tell anybody. The only people that knew were my pastor and his parents, only because they happened to be in New Hampshire at this time. If they weren't in New Hampshire, I never would have told them. They were, and if you watch the first video, you'll hear about this. They were actually the cause of the catalyst for why he was there. He was keeping a secret from me about them, and he couldn't handle it. So he ended up going crazy with the gun and ended up at the hospital. So only 3 people knew. We didn't tell anybody else. The kids and I just acted as normal. We still did whatever we were doing during the day. During the weekend, we still went to church. We just did whatever. It was not something we were going to tell anybody about. But my husband had no shame. He was not embarrassed by this. He didn't feel bad about being there. He was enjoying it. He loved the treatment. The first time I went to see him, well, every time, but the first time was just most striking to me. He was just there, smiling, as if we were great friends, as if we were, people that were reuniting after a long trip, and he was rushing over to me, hugging me. The spell was broken. He was getting his supply finally, and he was going to get better. He's telling me this. You know what? I know I've made a lot of mistakes. I know I've done things wrong, but it's because I'm an alcoholic. I'm learning here how much alcoholism has taken over my life. I was going to group this morning, and they really help you out here. And I met some great people here. We're all just going through a really rough time. We've been talking. I mean, it was ridiculous. He didn't understand. He is supposed to be a father and a husband. He has real responsibilities. Drinking and ignoring your family, ending up at a mental hospital because you're carrying on with a loaded gun is not something that is acceptable behavior at all. But he was just fine with it. That was the thing. Now, going to a mental hospital, visiting someone at a mental hospital is not exactly an easy thing to do, because I don't know if you have ever done this, but you can't just go. You can't just go to a mental hospital and walk in and visit somebody. You go there the way it was, anyways, where he was. It was at the same hospital that he ended up at the emergency room, but it was down, this other side of the hospital. It was in this, you wouldn't even have seen it. Like, if you went in, it was down this corridor. It was kind of hard to find. So we get there, and there's this phone. So you have to pick up this phone. You can't walk in. It's a locked wing. So you pick up this phone, and you say numbers. This is how it was. It was something like you pick up the phone, and someone answers, and then you say 45682, and then you say your name, and then they say, okay, hold on, and they, I'm assuming, speak to the patient and say, Sharon's here to see you. Would you like to see her? And then they'll get back on the phone, and they're like, okay, we'll buzz you in. You'll meet us up front or whatever. So they buzz me in, and then I have to turn over all my stuff. So I couldn't have my keys with me. I couldn't have my purse with me. No, I couldn't bring a pen with me, a drink, nothing. So they took everything. Then there he is. So the first time I met him, and every time I met him actually, we went to this little waiting room area, and we would talk for a half hour or so. And he would talk. This was very unusual for him because this wasn't how he did what he used to do. But strikingly, he would not ask me anything about myself, what I was doing, what the kids were doing, how I was, how the kids were. He didn't care. He didn't think that it was a big deal what he did. He didn't think being carted off via ambulance to the hospital in front of the house was something to be ashamed of. He didn't care. He was just getting lots of supply, talking about his alcoholism. And as the week went by, I visited him every day but one. And I'm going to talk to you about that day, why I didn't visit him in a minute. And each time it was the same thing. Now, one of the memories that I have from the hospital, the hospital changed a lot of things for me with him. I lost all respect that I had for him. There was one day I went to visit him, and he's standing there. I wish I could show you a picture of him because, I really wish I could. But I don't have a picture of this exact moment, but if you could see what he looks like, oh my gosh, you'd be so interested. But so he's standing there. I walk in, and he's standing there with a tray, picture a little elementary school kid with a cafeteria tray with a chicken patty on it and a little box thing of milk. And And then he had this root beer for me. And he said, "Oh, hope you don't mind, but it's lunchtime. I don't want to miss lunch." So I told people that I was going to meet you. So I hope you don't mind if I bring my tray. But I brought you a root beer. They don't have any Coke or anything, but here's a root beer for you. You can't have any caffeine. Not here at the mental hospital. You have to be careful here because people are going through a lot, so they can't have caffeine. We can't, watch TV. I can't have my phone. But it's just a time where we can be with each other, where we can be with the counselors, where we can be with people that really care about us. I was like, what the hell? What about me? I don't care about you. I'm not putting up with this stuff at home. I'm nothing. But this is how he was. He enjoyed it. That's really the point. He liked it. As the week went by, though, he started talking about coming home. I didn't want him to come home. The thought of him coming home made me sick. But at the time, I was so codependent, I felt like I had no choice, none at all. I spoke to my pastor, and my pastor's like, "Don't let him come home. Why are you going to let him come home? You don't want him home." When you are codependent, this is what happens. Against your own better judgment, you feel stuck. You feel trapped. You feel like you are in jail and you cannot get out. And that's exactly what was happening. So the day that I didn't visit my husband, I went to the police station. I was very concerned that my husband had all those bullets in the car. He had a handgun with 10 bullets in that, and then he had an additional 20 to 30 bullets. I was so stressed out about that. I was so worried about that. Why did he have all those bullets? If you're going to kill yourself, you need one bullet. I never believed he was suicidal. I don't know what he was going to do. I have no idea, but it was worrying me to no end. These stupid bullets. I was so worried. Why did he have these bullets? What was he going to do? So my pastor's like, you cannot let him come back to the house. Don't let him come. Change the locks and tell him he can't come back to the house. I was terrified to do that because I was a stay-at-home mother at the time, and I was afraid. I was afraid I wasn't going to be able to take care of my kids. I was afraid that he was going to I didn't think, well, a lawyer could help me. I just thought, no, he's not going to give me any money, and I'm not going to be able to pay the mortgage. And what am I going to do? How am I going to feed my kids? I felt like I was literally going to be penniless, and I was terrified. I have animals to take care of. I had the kids. I was terrified. So finally, my husband, the pastor, said, "Will you at least come to the police station with me? Can we go to the police station and we'll talk to somebody there? Maybe they can help." So I didn't want to, but I did go to the police station. So this is why I didn't visit him at the hospital that day. So I went to the police station and I'm sitting there. My pastor was so great. He's right next to me. And then there was a police officer, and he was great too. And he's sitting there telling me, "Ma'am, if you are afraid of him," because I had the police report there, looking at this, talking about things, talking about how he's at the mental hospital. It's like, if you are afraid of him, you cannot let this person come back to your house. I cannot guarantee that I can protect you. He said, I will send patrols over by your house. We'll have them drive by the house. It'll be a regular thing, right? We'll make a police presence known. But I can't live with you. I can't move into the house. You cannot let somebody come back there if you're afraid of them. You have to get a restraining order. We can help you do that. And so I have these people that were helping me, and I was like, I can't do it. I can't do it. I can't. And what are they going to do? They're not going to force me, and they probably thought I should have been in a mental hospital. But this is what had happened. I'm deeply ashamed of this. I ended up giving the police station, they have it to this day, the shotgun. I have a lot of handguns, but one shotgun. My pastor was like, you should get rid of the handguns. I didn't want to get rid of the handguns. I want the handguns. I like the handguns. They're my handguns. So I want the handguns. So I bought a case for them so that he couldn't have access to them. Of course, he could buy another gun. I live in New Hampshire. You can buy guns. I could go buy as many guns as I want today. So he could go buy a gun if he really wanted to. However, I gave them the shotgun because to buy a case, the way it was, to buy a case for the handguns wasn't that much money. It was expensive. It was a couple $100s, but it wasn't outrageous. To buy a huge thing to hold the shotgun was so much money that I didn't really care about the shotgun anyways. So the police took the shotgun for me. Everyone was so nice. I've always had people there to help me, but I still was making outrageously stupid decisions. So, at the end of the week, he came home. And when he came home, things really started changing. And I'll make an additional video. I'm done with the mental hospital video part, but between August of 2019 and December of 2019, that is when our relationship started deteriorating to such a degree that it culminated with a huge blow up in December of 2019 when he filed a false police report against me. I've made other videos related to that day, but I'll make another video about those in between months. So thank you for watching. I appreciate it very much. If you like the video, please give it a thumbs up. Please subscribe to the channel. I make videos every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. So if all goes well, I will see you on Monday, and I hope everybody has a great weekend.